Here's H.R. 1544. And H.R. 1544 wants to prohibit the formation of private paramilitary organizations, be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America and Congress assembled. This act may be cited as the Domestic Insurgency Act of 1995, Section 2, Paramilitary Organizations. In general, whoever knowingly participates in a paramilitary organization shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 10 years or both. As used in this section, the term paramilitary organization means two or more individuals acting together, organized in a military or paramilitary structure, who knowingly, 1, possess firearms, explosives, incendiary devices, or other weapons or techniques capable of causing injury or death to individuals, or 2, before I even get to 2, I go back to the days when I was a kid on a farm, and my grandfather had explosives to blow tree stumps. Good grief! I told you the story about how, as a coal miner, they used to have these graphite lamps, and the lamp you would burn in the wick would be set in graphite. Well, you could take that graphite, and if you urinated into a bottle of graphite with graphite in it, kids would throw it in the air and watch it explode. So you had explosives. You certainly had a lot of explosives in farmlands. That's number one. But supposing you and I decide we're going to go hunting now. I want to do some pheasant hunting. Before I do the pheasant hunting, though, scrap the pheasant hunting. I want to do some rifle. I want to do some target shooting. So we're out there, we have a couple of guns. These are all military weapons. These are all weapons that can cause harm to people. I have some explosives in the barn because I use them from time to time. You can get dynamite. That's why dynamite is available, because it is can be put to productive use. Just because somebody has explosives doesn't mean that they're trying to revolt and destroy and kill, maim, cripple, and disable people. But, here again, you're going to be guilty before you can prove your innocence. In other words, the same thing as, have you stopped beating your wife lately? Provide or participate in training in any use of any such weapons or techniques. Oh my Lord, I can't go to a gun club. I certainly can't go out with the guys and go through the kind of training with guns, weapons that I want to go through. Because that means that I am some kind of a threat. Let me tell you, most police officers aren't properly trained when it comes to arms. Most police officers don't do what is necessary just for them to stay alive. I wish the hell they did. I wish they would train. Seriously, take it seriously. The weapons that they carry are weapons for their defense, to protect their lives. You know that they're only going to get there after the incident happens to you. You can't expect otherwise. It's not because they don't do their job. You call 911. How much time does it take to call 911? The guy's coming through the back door. You're lucky if you have 3 people in the house and 2 of you can fend off the guy coming in the back door while the third party calls 911. But if you're alone, you call 911 and you can't protect yourself, you're dead. And that's not the fault of law enforcement. Remember Larry Nevers and Walter Budson. Don't ever forget them. I'll tell you my personal experience where I have found that in law enforcement community and here in this state is no different than other states that I've worked in. We have some fine people in law enforcement. And they are law-abiding, and they stand up behind your Second Amendment rights. So when you hear, sure, there are guys who they don't want you to have a Second Amendment right, but they're few. The majority of the law enforcement people are men and women who understand the necessity for that Second Amendment right. So when the President of the United States says, "How dare you suggest that we we in the freest nation on earth live in tyranny, we read the newspapers and we watch the news, and we also see what's happening in the court system to law-abiding citizens who can't even keep their property any longer, who are having a very difficult time keeping the food on the table, where we now live in a society where it takes two people in the family to go out and make a living because of the taxing policy, which is an evil policy, corrupt. It needs to be changed, but they don't want to hear that. And you know, it's the same old story, the Federal Reserve and how they implement the boom and bust cycles that create the inflation that robs from us, and how the policy robs from Peter to pay Paul. Now we have a central banking system to redistribute the wealth, and without honest money, the politicians never have to be accountable. So if we don't have intrinsic value to the money system, then they never have to be accountable, and they can continue to balloon the payments of the debt's going to go sky high. They'll continue to go sky high. They'll tinker around the edges. They'll bring it down a little bit. But if they were really serious about it, you know that all they would do for the next 2 years is just stop the increase in spending. That's it. It would bring the national debt down, but it isn't to their purpose. It doesn't serve their purpose to bring the debt down, so they won't do it. We want to defend our property rights. We want to defend our right to the pursuit of happiness, which means man has a right to live for himself. He has a right to choose what constitutes his own private, personal, individual happiness, and then to go out and work for that achievement, so long as he respects the same right in others. How many times I have somebody from the news media who will come up and say, "Oh, you think everybody can just do anything they want? This is individual right thing. How can you be so dumb?" It means that man cannot be forced to devote his life to the happiness of another man, nor of any number of other men. It means that the collective cannot decide what is to be the purpose of a man's existence. And that collective is not to prescribe his choice of happiness or to tell him how he and his wife and children should be living. Now, if you're not honoring the rights, the same rights of your children that you expect men to honor of you, of course you're going to have intervention from the government. Because that's what government is supposed to do. It has a threefold purpose. Protect you from criminal element and abuse, protect you from foreign invasion, and then to give you a court system so you can adjudicate your differences, and properly so. That's why a right is a moral principle. It defines and sanctions a man's freedom of action, and it does it in a social context so we can live in peace and harmony. But when we see what has been happening to our intellectual freedom, and believe me, intellectual freedom cannot exist without political freedom. Political freedom cannot exist without economic freedom. And a free mind and a free man in a free market, those are corollaries. They all go hand in hand. Reason and freedom are corollaries. Freedom. When men are rational, freedom wins. When men are free, reason wins. You cannot force the community unless you want to enslave them or unless you do enslave them. And it's not society. It is not society. It's not the laws that are on our books. It's not the law enforcement personnel who are out there doing their job and doing their damnedest, by the way, to do that job. It is not because of that forbids you to kill. It is the inalienable individual right of another man to live that forbids you to kill. And that's what they forgot at Waco. That's what they forgot at Ruby Ridge. That's what the United States government is forgetting. This is not compromise between two rights.